Hi guys, it's Sophie. And today's video is going to be the Q&A answers for all of the bookish related questions. So thank you all ever so much, firstly for subscribing and secondly for asking me questions. There's enough that I'm going to split it into. It'll be part 1 of 2 for you. So both We Need Honey and Francesca 10 asked me how much time do I dedicate to reading each day. So I read for about 2 or 3 hours each weeknight, and on a quiet weekend, so when I'm not sort of doing too much, I might read for 12 to 14 hours on a weekend where I have stuff on, or weekends where I'm studying for at least a whole sort of day, which I do most weekends. Then it's more like sort of 6 to 8 hours over the whole weekend. So probably I read more throughout the week than I do a weekend, unless I've got a really quiet one. Robotnik asked me what would I like to see more of on BookTube. I think for me, seeing more non-fiction would be great. I think it's something that I'm getting into more, and I'm seeing more and more people who are sort of getting into it along with me, but it's great. I think non-fiction is sort of overlooked sometimes as something that's fun to read, and I love thinking that our community can be a little cosmos in which we think that that's great fun. So yeah, probably more non-fiction. Reading Crazy Patterns asked me if there was one specific book that kicked off my love for reading. So for me, I think it would probably be Sophie's Snail, which I read when I was very young, and it's by Dick King-Smith. And I was pretty much her when I was a small child. My name was Sophie, she wanted to be a lady farmer, I wanted to be a lady vet, and we got on rather well. So yeah, I read those books over and over again, sort of as I was growing up. So I would say probably those were the first books I really fell in love with. Bookish North asked what makes a book a favourite for me. So for me, it's definitely exquisite writing and really biting descriptions. So when you have a description that not only sort of encapsulates what the message they're trying to get across, but sort of physically, when you're seeing it, looks beautiful. So it's a bit weird, but those two things definitely help. And the other thing that I find will make a book my favourite is if it's a truly novel idea, or it's a truly unique way of looking at communicating a message. Those are the two things that I think make books my favourite. A Gal and Some Books asked me what my favourite reading spot is, and I think it's probably this cafe, which I'll put a picture of now. So I go here every Sunday. If I'm in on a Sunday, then I'll be there in the mornings, and I'll have a coffee and I'll sit upstairs and read. So that's my favourite sort of escaping reading place. Amanda Center asked me if I were to write a novel, what kind of elements would it contain? So I have written novels, novellas and sort of shorter pieces, and the things that normally crop up in those pieces is a theme of the violence of women, which sounds a bit weird, but for me it's quite important to show that women are not purely soft and gentle and kind. I think often when we talk about sort of feminism and we talk about breaking things down, we think about breaking things down in ways that are directly positive to women, but sometimes we kind of forget that as a side point of being whole humans, women are dangerous and women are violent, and women are capable of doing horrible things, and I think people don't talk about that enough. I think people are too quick to dismiss the violence of women as not meaning anything, and it's important to sort of chat about, and I don't think anyone really does. So it's something that crops up in my work regardless, and it's something that I haven't necessarily consciously done from the start, but when I look over my work I'm like, wow, that's a theme. Literary Diversions asked me if I could change one event in a book, what would I change? So a bit of a weird answer, but I wouldn't change anything. I might not always agree with the decisions that the author's made. So for example, Burial Rights by Hannah Kent, there's one specific detail that I spoke about in my review that you'll know I would have made the book a bit happier for me, but I feel a really strong respect for what they have written and for the thing as an entity when it's finished, and I wouldn't change plot details. I mean, yeah, obviously you can have reviews of editions and change sort of language or whatever, but I don't know, I feel like I'm quite a purist to the meaning that the author had to start with and continuing with that. So whilst there are things I might want to change, I don't think I actually could. Vienna Waits Books asked me who gave me my love of reading. So it's kind of a hard question, because I think probably it would have been my mum, although she wasn't sort of, a real bookworm, but she did support me in my bookworminess as a small child. So she would sort of read stories to us when we went to sleep, and she'd make sure she took me to the library every weekend and stuff. So I think she definitely supported it, but I don't think there was anyone in my life who I sort of really looked up to as like a massive reader and someone I wanted to be like. So Probably my mum, I guess. Bookish North asked me what my favourite read of the year so far has been, and it's been Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. I spoke in one of my other videos, I can't remember which one, about how this has kind of overtaken House of Leaves for me at the moment, and that's kind of amazing. I'll chat about it more when I do my Cormac McCarthy video as to why, but yeah, Child of God for now. So the next two questions have the same answer, so I'm just gonna tell you both the questions and then answer for you. So Girl and Some Books asked me any authors whose work I pick up regardless of topic or content, sort of an auto-buy author I suppose. And Bookish North asked me if there's any author that I'm such a fan of I feel like I wouldn't read their work objectively. So these are my owned Stephen King's, and that's not even half of what I've actually read by him. I had a lot of his books before I did my unhaul when I was younger, and I've bought a few, had a few from the library, borrowed a few from people. I think I probably read 15 or 16 of his books. I'm not sure that I'm ever going to be able to be objective with Stephen King because I started reading him at a really, really horrible time of my life, and he was like the thing that made me happy at that time. And so his writing and his writing style just fills me with this sense of like everything is going to be okay, which doesn't make a lot of sense considering he just writes like horrifying, terrifying novels, but it does. It makes me feel really safe and sort of puts me in a really just nice headspace. So I know that purely because he's writing it and it's going to be that familiar voice, I'm going to love it. And it means probably, you know, a lot of the Stephen Kings I've read aren't as good as I think they are. But I don't mind that, I like him. But yeah, I'd read pretty much anything he wrote and I'd probably like it. And Ashok asked me what my most beautiful book is in my collection. And I owned an odd because there are so many that I could choose because I love books and I love beautiful editions of books and I try and find those. But one thing I do with my shelves is that I turn around beautiful books to face so that I can see them. So I was thinking, well, what ones do I choose the most? And The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman has been centralised for probably about 6 months of the year that I've been doing it like that. It's absolutely stunning. I love that these things at the top are birds and it just doesn't make sense, like where is he and this is the sky, and it's just gorgeous. Yeah, so probably this book. Amanda Center asked me what book would I most like my subscribers to read. It's still going to be this one. It's still going to be this one because it looks like a disgusting heavy textbook and it looks like something that you would sort of use as a doorstop and that'd be about it. And it's not. It's wonderful and it's beautiful and it's so long and it needs people to convince other people to read it. So I'm one of those people and this will nearly always be the book that I'm going to recommend that people read. It's never going to change, I'm sorry guys. Very pragmatic, asking what my view on readathons is. I enjoy them, but I don't think they do two things that I think people would think they would do. One is that I don't think they make you read anymore, and two is that I don't think they make you appreciate what you read anymore. The thing I like is the community aspect of it, but I think I read poorly in a readathon. That said, I'm going to keep doing them because I really like the community aspect of them. Amanda J asked me what book do I think everyone should read before they die. So I actually don't think that there is one book that will do that for everyone. I think that there are books for each people that will do that for that person. So for me, that book is I Am a Strange Leap by Douglas Hofstadter. Hofstadter's my babe. I love him so much. It's a little bit unfair. He's probably my biggest like intellectual crush. And this book and Go to Letterbark changed the way that I think about the world and changed the way that I sort of form my own philosophies. I know I haven't spoken about this one too much because Hofstadter's hard and Hofstadter suits people who like maths and people who like physics, and it can be quite inaccessible, and whilst I really, really love it, I know a lot of people might not like it, which is kind of why this suits, because this is my book. This is the book that affects me so much and that I think of all the time in my life, but for other people it might not be. It might do absolutely nothing for them, but there you go. Amanda Center asked me what my top 5 favourite books are at the moment. Just sort of off the top of my head of stuff I've read recently. When Breath Becomes Air is absolutely fantastic. Child of God, as we mentioned earlier. I really loved The First Bad Man and No One Belongs Here More Than You by Miranda July. Jellyfish by Janice Galloway, they're just sort of off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's more, I'm sure there's ones I've missed. And Ashok asked me to recommend her 3 books off the top of my head, so let's go again. I would say 3 novels by Suzair Era. I would say Surface Rights by Melissa Hardy, and what else would I say? Reason She Goes to the Woods, I can't remember who that's by, but that one's fantastic. So yeah, there you go, there's 3 recommendations completely off the top of my head. Literary Diversions asked me what my most surprising find was in a book, so either a book or a genre I didn't expect to like that I did enjoy. So for me that would be translated fiction. So when I was younger I thought translated fiction would be really difficult, and I thought that I wouldn't be able to relate at all with the characters in the books. I thought they'd live completely different lives to me and that I'd have no idea what was going on. And then I sort of grew up and I started reading a bit of translated fiction, and sort of realised how similar people are across the world and love it. So yeah, it's one of my favourite things to read now, even though there's no such thing as a genre in translated fiction, but it just always seems to open me up to other people's experiences, and there's so much out there that's wonderful. It's such a shame just to block a whole section off, so that'd be mine. So Amanda J asked me what fictional protagonist do I relate to most. So this was really hard for me. I sort of was trying to think and trying not to judge myself too harshly. But I think it's probably going to be Blee Van Meer from Special Topics in Calamity Physics, for 2 reasons. One is how protective she is of her intellect. So I am someone who is on the edge of falling into snobbiness at any moment of my life, and I sort of related to that in terms of her trying really hard to make people know that she's not an idiot, but also trying not to come off as a complete arse. So that, and sometimes failing, so that, and also the way she sort of thinks about the world and just goes through stuff, and the sort of slightly detached way she has about dealing with other people. I can be like that too. Yeah, so there you go. Don't judge me too harshly from that. And then the last sort of questions I had were from Jaboski and from Amanda Centre, and they were both around TBR piles and how to tackle them and how to get to that 0x16 that I managed, or we're now in 16, so the equivalent. I think it's Read Your Own Damn Books this year. So I could sort of sit here and give you a few tips, but I think I would rather make a video about it and make a video about my process for doing that, because it does seem to be something that people find quite impressive that I've done, and it does seem to be quite unusual. I know obviously other people did manage it too, but it seems relatively few people who actually did sit down and manage it. So maybe I think I will make a video just talking about that as a specific thing, and giving a few tips and hints, etc. A little bit of my experience of it, things I've done and things that worked and things that didn't work. So hopefully that will answer all your questions, and sorry to sort of stall on that one. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this video, and that you have a good insight as to my sort of bookish world. And I've got another one coming up soon, which will be all of the non-bookish questions that you guys asked me, so I look forward to that one too. I hope you'll have a really, really lovely week. Bye bye.